Welcome to the next episode. I think it's the third one now. We're relatively brand new podcast of the Cash Up podcast with Postatus. And I am really excited here today to be with Tamara Niesen, who is the CMO for Woo. Welcome, Tamara. It's good to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. Third episode.
Oh,
I feel VIP being on here.
I'm really excited. I don't get to talk to people from Automattic that often, and I'm hoping to change that. I've actually been working pretty closely with Megan Fox on the Automattic team. She sends me all the things like, "Hey, can you cover this?" And so building those relationships to make sure that we help get the word out about products and movements within WordPress and be able to share what's happening. And I'm really excited. There's been a lot of stuff coming out of Woo lately. I think it was yesterday, your new branding launched, and I want to talk about that with you for sure. And then what you know about the roadmap, what's happening with Woo and WooCommerce, and kind of get into all the things. But first, tell me about you a little bit. I asked you before, but people don't know where you're located, what you do as CMO. Some people might not even know what CMO means. So give us a little bit of insight into Tamara.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So I am based in Waterloo, Ontario, which is about an hour away from Toronto. There's plenty of snow here. I liken the weather to where you are in Rochester or Buffalo or Detroit. We're not too far from there. And CMO, so Chief Marketing Officer, which is a title for leading marketing. So marketing, I like to reference as a symphony. There's many instrument players in the symphony, different roles, different functions that come together to produce beautiful music. Is my favorite analogy. But what's unique about, I think, marketing in general, especially at Woo, is that we all play different roles. But the important part is that we come together, put our merchants first, and execute on key strategies, like our brand launch yesterday.
I love that. And one of the questions I asked you beforehand, and I think, and you're like, that's a really good question. We're getting that a lot. So I want to kind of dig in a little bit. And I said we would do this live, or we're recorded, but you know what I mean, on the show, is to ask you, what's the difference between Woo and WooCommerce? I think it was a year and a half ago that it was like, hey, we're changing WooCommerce to Woo. And then it's like, oh, we're changing it back. And so I think there might be a little bit of brand confusion, especially when you do launch a new branding. So can you kind of give us an idea of what that's all about?
Absolutely. And I think I know what you're referencing to. So I'll go back to that moment in time where we went from Woo to WooCommerce and back to Woo and then back to WooCommerce. But essentially, from the standpoint of the Woo name, that's like our organization, that's our company name. And so we'll wrap our corporate branding around that, and our WooCommerce branding will be associated with our platform, our products, our suite of products. And so what I think folks are referring to last year, we did change our website at some point to woo.com, and then quickly pivoted back to WooCommerce because we had so much equity built into that property. And so
Mhm.
we'll stick with that. And honestly, I mean, our WooCommerce website is really the front door to our platform, and we want to
Mhm.
showcase our platform and our merchants through that. So that's why we went a little bit back and forth on that.
That makes perfect sense. And sometimes you try things and you're like, well, we should pivot back.
Yeah, yeah. Oops.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, I think back to New Coke, and think, oh, that didn't work. People knew it was Coke, but let's go back to regular Coke. And like the whole idea is we try things, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. As marketers, we are sometimes mavericks, and we recognize when something doesn't hit and we correct course. Well, that's a good thing.
Right? Thrive on change. Thrive on change. Experiment. Ruthlessly experiment and thrive on change.
Exactly. I mean, luckily lives aren't lost and lived and lost because of branding, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But yeah, it was a fun experiment and it was kind of fun to watch as another marketer, to see how that worked out for you as a brand. But I'm excited about the new branding. It's really pretty, quite honestly. Like I love the aesthetic of it. So can you talk a little bit about what went into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm wearing it as you can see. I'm wearing my hat and
Mhm.
my sweater today. I have my window open because this room is actually quite warm, even though it's freezing outside. So I'm trying to balance so I can still rep the brand. But this was a labor of love for really the last 9 months. We decided that we had more focus in terms of how we wanted to go to market, the customer we wanted to serve, which is all of our customers, but we needed to have more focus in terms of marketing, in terms of our product and our roadmap. And so we felt like it was due time to bring a new look and feel into the market, and thought that it would be really beneficial not just for us as Woo, but also for our community. One thing that I learned when I first got here which was about 9 months ago, is that we're one of the most popular e-commerce platforms in the world. And I don't think most people know that. And so there's this, opportunity to create more recognition and demand in the market and, give Woo a place in that conversation, which in turn, in my very strong opinion, helps all boats rise. It helps our community, it helps our developers, our partners, our agencies, which is really like tied to our values and our business model and what helps us thrive and what helps, our community thrive. So the whole brand was wrapped around that in bringing that together. And so we started to, really think about our customers. Let's like refocus on them. Why do they come to Woo? What matters to them? Why do developers and agencies build and sell Woo on our behalf? What is it? What is so powerful about the WordPress community? How do we tie that all together and bring forward this brand that represents all of that? And so that's the work that we were heads down on for the first few months of doing this. And then bringing in our in-house design team to say, like, how does that show up now with look and feel? Where it's a vibrant color, it's like a beautiful, like it catches your attention, but it's still professional, it's still modern, it's slick. It has like different applications that we can bring to products, to communities, to merchants, and apply it everywhere. And so I am also a huge fan of it. I love the logo, I love the colors, like, and the fact that it was done in-house is quite remarkable in my career.
Mhm.
I don't think that we've really done something so big and grand in-house with arguably a relatively small team. We're not a huge organization. And so really proud of how that came together.
Well, shout out to the whole team. I mean, that's a lot of work to in a relatively short amount of time. I don't think people outside of marketing don't realize that 9 months is actually pretty quick to turn something like that around, especially when you say you have a small team. So that's pretty awesome. You can't really tell right now because of the lighting in here, but I also have purple hair. So I feel like maybe I have an affinity towards the new branding.
Oh, I thought you just did that for us today. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a commitment.
It is for sure. Um, so I wanted to ask you a little bit more like kind of like in depth. So what took you in the direction? Like I love the W on wheels kind of idea, like that it moves quickly and that kind of thing. And it's a freemius brand, right? So like a lot of plugins are freemius, right? So you or freemium, I mean. So you start with freemius as a brand itself. Freemium brand.
Maybe I wasn't familiar with, and I was just going with it. I understood what you meant.
I read something from them in an email this morning, so like it was in my head. But WooCommerce is free. Anybody can download it, anybody can use it. There are add-ons that are, of course, part of the marketplace that are in-house for you, and then there's a whole ecosystem built up around it as well. My other job is the StellarWP, and we have Iconic and Orderable, which are WooCommerce add-ons. Um, and I will tell you a funny story about this. So when I was freelancing, this was probably about 10 years ago now, I was at WordCamp Toronto and I heard somebody talk about WooCommerce and how it's free and you can do so much with it. And I didn't say anything like publicly because I didn't want the to put the speaker kind of on the defense, but afterwards I walked up to him and I said, WooCommerce is free, but it's kind of like that free puppy, right? Like you get a free puppy and then like all of a sudden you've got to buy this and you got to buy that and you got to buy that. But the truth is you can use WooCommerce pretty robustly if you're not trying to do very specific things. And Beau is just about to join us, so I'm going to bring him in with us, Beau Lebens, who's on your team as well. Hopefully he knows that we're already recording. Hey, Beau.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey,
Let
how are
me
you
get
doing?
my
I was
doing
just
well.
in the
Let me just
process.
get things fixed
Sure.
up. There we go.
I was just asking Tamara about how I once described WooCommerce as a free puppy. Like the puppy's free, but then the vet bills and the food and the leashes and the dog bed and all those kinds of things are separate. And so the idea of something being free in the freemium market is great because you can use it free. But sometimes if you want to do very specific things, you have to pay for the add-ons. And at the time, I was just like, this was 10 years ago. So I didn't even work in I was a freelancer back then. I wasn't working in product yet. now I know that like all those people actually have to be paid for the work that they're
Right?
doing, and that
Yeah,
the premium add-ons actually go towards supporting the growth and the roadmap of what's happening. So I think I
exactly.
started in a different part of a question, but I'm going to keep going where I am going and ask about like road mapping. And I mean, when WooCommerce was first introduced, it didn't have nearly the add-ons and the marketplace that's grown up around it, because as we grow as an internet and we want to do more things, we have a requirement
Hmm.
for adding more things. So can you tell me a little bit about what that's been like over the last year, and then growing into what you might see that you can talk about coming down the roadway?
Yeah,
Before
absolutely.
Hope says that, can I say one thing about the
Absolutely.
like carrying it over from the the rebrand and what I thought were really key
Yes.
differentiators to Woo, because we were going into that, and I know everyone's probably more excited to hear from Beau on this, so I won't take. But this is actually what makes Woo unique. We have this ecosystem of extensions. We have this free, extension for Woo that you can start with. And one of, the key differentiators, in my opinion, is that you can scale sustainably as your business grows. You can add on those pieces as you need to. So you're not paying for, things right out of the gate, right out of the box that you don't need. You are adding on as time goes on with, integrations that are seamless and plug in, et cetera. But I think that's a really critical piece to, our platform in general. But there are places where we need to make that easier. And so I'll let Beau speak to that. But
Well, before I let Bo speak to that, I'm going to circle back on that question. Sorry, Bo, and say,
All good.
if somebody is thinking, what plugins do I need? Is there a support forum? Are there people they can talk to find out more about what they need?
so we have our happiness engineers. We have, educational tools that we're starting to build out with that group as well, and make this easier for our merchants that are starting out on their own and for our partners and developer ecosystem as well. But we also have an opportunity to get more opinionated there. And so I would like our team, as the next phase of, this platform evolution, this brand evolution, and the work that we're doing, is to provide more opinion or recommendations there, because it can be overwhelming. I think there's this paradox of choice, and there's so much happening in the markets. Like, where do I start? And so we owe it to our merchants to guide them better on that. And we can look at
Mhm.
it from, certain levels of complexity. Are you just starting your business? Are you scaling your business? Are you migrating your business? Or what industry or vertical might you be in? Because that's another really unique thing about Woo, is we serve really complex business models in unique verticals. And so tailoring those recommendations and personalizing it is a huge opportunity for us that we need to lean into.
So e-commerce is huge,
Mhm.
right? I promise I'm going to get back to the
Yep.
original question. E-commerce is huge, and I think that so let's go back to Michelle as the newbie freelancer. And I thought I could build a website pretty quickly because I was building these brochure sites, and I was like, somebody's like, "Well, how much would you charge me to build a website that was similar to this other one?" And I said, $500. Okay, like let's just, oh, poor little newbie Michelle. Well, I really need an e-commerce system to go with it. How much would it cost if I add that on there? Oh, another 150. Okay, yes, I was crazy. And I counted that. I paid for that education. So all of that to say that there is a lot that you can do with e-commerce, which brings us to all of the add-ons and the ecosystem that's come up to this
Mhm.
point, and back to the roadmap. I told you I was going to get back
Yeah,
to it, Bo.
nice loop back there. Yeah, no, I think this is actually something that a lot of people, I think, underestimate the complexity and the scope of e-commerce, especially today, global commerce. It's online, it's offline, it's integrating with different marketplaces. Tamara mentioned different verticals have different needs. In our case, we serve a global market. Every geography has different needs. So there's just a million things going on there. Um, and then every business is unique, right? Like everyone wants to run things slightly differently. They want to present their products however it is that's important to them. Maybe they want to take pre-orders or they want to sell on a subscription or whatever it is. So there's really no just universal, here's everything that you need to run every business, right? There's definitely a sort of baseline, a set of expected things that most merchants are going to need to run most types of businesses. And that's, I think, the really interesting thing that we've seen shift over the last few years in particular, is that baseline of expectations has increased. And so where previously as Tamara mentioned, what has made us unique is we had this core, and then you had this whole world of extensions and plugins and things that you could add on top of it. And the expectation of what's in that core, what are those platform features, that expectation has really changed. And so it's actually it's not in everyone's best interest for you to have to go make a decision on every single thing that goes in there, right? And so what we're a big part of our roadmap in the coming year is kind of bringing more of that baseline to the platform. So what you'll see is a lot more. What we've started referring to it, and then the name sort of stuck. Is just calling it more in core. The intent is not just throw everything in core, but it is to look really judiciously at what are the extensions that people are using, a lot of which we sell, frankly, and saying it's in everyone's best interest if we don't sell this separately and we just put it in core and we give it away. And to your point of, oh, but people need to get paid and pay for their meals and pay for their rent and whatever. That's where from a sort of platform perspective, we can partner. We can make sure that we've got like really robust payment solutions. We've got really robust shipping solutions. Some of these like fundamental things that everybody needs. And we can monetize those. And that's how we can help keep the platform free. So from a sort of more concrete perspective, you'll see us like really lean into payments. We've actually really been leaning in there already. We're improving the way that you can enable and disable different payment methods, that you can customize and present those in your checkout throughout the rest of your site through express payment methods, things like that. So that's a big area. I mentioned shipping. So we're really bulking up our Woo shipping solution. We've got, we had USPS labels supported in there previously and DHL. We just rolled out UPS. We're working on some other big carriers. So making sure that that's like a really deeply integrated and robust set of features. And then outside of just the actual sort of shipping and live rates and label printing stuff, there's some pretty cool improvements coming to the way that order management works. That'll apply to whether you're using Woo shipping or not. So just to, I don't know how much time we've got, but to get like into a detail that, because I think it's a really interesting one. Historically, when you're managing orders in WooCommerce, they just have a single order status. So there's just this like kind of flat list of an order is in some status in this list. We're moving towards breaking that out and having a fulfillment status and a payment status separately. So you'll be able to have, a global idea of this order is in processing and maybe it's partially paid and partially fulfilled. And so that gives a lot more flexibility to the platform. I come at our platform from a like capabilities perspective. So like, what can we make possible? Even if it's not useful to everyone necessarily, the platform itself should make it possible to do everything that people want to do. And then we can look at how we expose that. So this order status, fulfillment status, there'll be like a separate flow for handling fulfillment. So people can keep track of their packages, split their fulfillments, split their shipments, things like that. So lots of improvements happening in that area. And then so in this more in core concept as well, I mentioned like that some of the extensions that we actually own and sell at the moment. So we just recently merged brands. So the ability just to have a like structured list of what brand is this product that I'm selling, and have that be able to flow through to other integrations, whether it's like schema.org markup or integration with another marketplace or whatever. So that merged recently. We're looking at back in stock notifications right now.
Okay.
So I think that's going to be an interesting one where, just the ability to have a customer sign up and say, tell me when this is back in stock. And I have that just managed natively.
Nice.
And then we've got a few others. I won't commit to any of them just yet because our James Kemp is our core product manager. People are probably familiar with him. He's been around in the WooCommerce community for years. He's great. And he's working through the roadmap of like, which order do we put some of these things in there and which like parts of this functionality are most useful for most merchants. So it's not just like a throw this entire extension in core type thing.
Yeah.
It's, which bits are people going to use and how do we put it in a way that's still extensible, but still flexible, that increases the capabilities of the platform.
With my
Yeah, sorry,
StellarWP
I
hat on.
rambled.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good information. With my StellarWP hat on, I will say that we have Iconic and Orderable
Hmm.
because we got those from James and he worked with me
Right, 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 right. Of course.
prior to working with you. He's a wonderful person and he's incredibly
Yes.
talented. So you are very lucky
Yes.
that you have him on your team for
We are
sure.
indeed. Shout out to James.
Absolutely.
You delete
Um,
that part, right? Just
I
kidding,
will,
just kidding. Shut
we're not deleting it now.
up.
When I was freelancing and building sites for other people, the e-commerce part, the shipping part was the most difficult to try to manage. I even attended
Yes.
classes on it and at that point said, I'm only building e-commerce sites for downloadables because I just couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm not a developer,
Yeah.
like making those things work
It
for
is
me.
notoriously complex.
Yeah, especially if you go into international shipping and you have to deal with sizes and
Yeah.
weights and things like that for sure.
Don't
So it's
even get
nice.
started on if you're shipping hazardous materials.
Oh, let's not
That
even go
gets
in that.
even harder.
Let's not even go into that, right? Is there a battery in there? Is there lithium battery? We can't, a
Mhm.
different thing for sure. But it's really good to hear that some of those things, I mean, I'm talking, it was 10 years ago when I was dealing with those things. So a lot of
Yeah.
that has been worked through and a lot of that is much easier now, which I'm very happy to hear for those people who are still building sites for other people or for themselves, which is wonderful. What do you think about the ecosystem that has built up around Woo, offering these add-ons and things like that? And when you are thinking about building an add-on yourself or incorporating something into core, do you take into mind that somebody else has already done that and the competition that you could create there? And I know that's a kind of a tenuous subject sometimes, but I'd like to hear how you
Yeah.
consider those things.
Definitely, yeah. It is a tricky one. It is a sensitive topic, obviously. So we do consider what have people built, what are like, what is the sort of competition or lack of competition or sort of prevention of competition, if you like, that's happening here. Um, and as I mentioned, where we're starting is actually mostly extensions that we own.
Right.
So the biggest thing that we're actually looking at sort of uh, I don't know, preventing competition around, if you like, is something where we are probably already the dominant solution in that space. So that frankly makes it just a little easier. It's like as
For
long as
sure.
we're okay with it, then we can go with it. And to be completely transparent, that is we're giving up direct revenue there. We are
Yeah.
selling these extensions and we're saying we're not going to sell it anymore
Hmm.
because we think that putting it in core and making more merchants more successful as a baseline is better for everyone, including
Sure.
us.
Yeah.
So there's that element of it that in some of those cases, it's a little easier
Sure.
because we can just say, we sort of do our own math and say, yep, we're comfortable with it. Let's do it.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely we're looking around and seeing, oh, this actually sort of is crosses over with a feature that someone else may have a product which isn't directly solving that problem, but it sort of
Hmm.
tangentially solves it. And so we're like, oh, we're a little bit more competitive with them. We're trying to have conversations with some of those developers. I
Hmm.
just had one at the end of last week. And so we're trying to sort of be open with what's
Hmm.
happening and where we're going and why it's happening the way that it is. Um, so far, everyone that we've talked to has actually been supportive of it.
Nice.
Even when it's sort of personally challenging for them, they
Sure.
understand why we're doing it. They understand that there's always been this sort of platform risk of, hey, if you're building a solution that the platform probably should have, at some point the platform might have that thing.
Sure.
Um, and I think part of it has been communicating that we're not trying to put everything in there. We know we can't do that.
Right.
We just know that the I've internally often referred to it as a little bit of a slider. And on the far left, you've got like just a really basic set of code, and like every single feature is a separate plugin. And
Right.
on the far right, every single feature is one plugin. It's like maybe baked all the way into WordPress itself,
Hmm.
right? We're never going to be on that far right.
Right.
But at the
Right.
moment, we're way over here on the far left, and we just need to slide it a little bit to
Move
the
that
right.
needle a little bit. If you had everything
Yeah,
built in, all you would hear is this slows my site down so much, right? So you have to be
right,
careful of that also,
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah,
And
so
not
definitely,
commit.
not trying to get there.
Yeah, not committing you to anything when I ask this, but I mean, Automattic typically has been open to the idea of mergers and acquisitions as well. So I imagine
Mhm.
that there, and I'm not again asking for things that you can't talk about. I imagine there are possibilities that you see something that's so well built, you say, "Hey, can we make you an offer to just bring that in-house?" And then either bring you
Yeah,
with it or not. So I mean, that's always a
right.
possibility as well. So
Yeah, and I won't commit to anything there, but I will say,
yes.
like, if you look around, the things that we're putting in there at the moment, like back in stock notifications is a good example, uh, came from our acquisition of Somewhere Warm.
Yeah,
So that is exactly how that happened.
it makes
And
sense.
one of the ones that we've been getting a lot of questions about, and to be completely open here, like we don't actually know what this will look like yet, but is subscriptions. The
Mm-hmm.
really popular, really interesting differentiated feature for WooCommerce, where I
Yeah.
think WooCommerce has like by far the most powerful and robust subscriptions capability in the market.
Hmm.
That's a separate product at the moment.
Especially
And
for
so
memberships, it works really well for memberships.
right, right. And so having that sort of capabilities, a lot of people are saying like, put that in core. We want that in core so that it's
Right.
available everywhere. But figuring out exactly how that looks is it's a little more complicated because it is
I'm sure.
a sort of separate type of use case,
Hmm.
and it's just a huge code base of its own. So back
Yeah.
to your like, this slows my site down. We're doing all of this with performance as a sort of first class requirement. So in parallel to putting things in core and making sure we do it in a performant way, we actually have like a whole separate work stream going on of performance optimizations and improvements just at the
Right.
platform level.
And of course, every
So
step of the
yeah,
way, just like every plugin developer, you have to be paying attention to what's happening in WordPress core to make sure there's no problems there. But also,
you
when
know
you've
it.
got when you've got as many add-ons as you do, you also have to make sure that those add-ons are not competing with one another and with your core. And then you have to look at what some of the bigger players are in the market and make sure you're not competing or not that those plugins aren't causing problems with like say Elementor or Kadence or some of those things as well.
Yep.
So I don't know if everybody realizes how much research goes into that kind of development also.
They definitely do not, based on the feedback that we get. Anytime there's any kind of misstep or any kind of small problem, it is remarkable, like that the people expect everything to work with everything flawlessly,
Yeah.
as they should. That's actually what we aim for. But yeah, to your point, it is complex. There's a lot of moving pieces in this ecosystem. We've built some really interesting tools internally within the WooCommerce.com marketplace. We have some infrastructure called the Quality Insights Toolkit, which is actually baked into the marketplace.
Hmm.
And so it allows you to do a lot of compatibility testing and interoperability testing between various plugins.
Nice.
And so that's actually, it's got a whole suite of different tests. But personally, I think the most interesting thing in it is that you could, for example, run a suite of tests across, let's say, 5 different extensions, 4 different plugins, WooCommerce itself, and WordPress across different PHP and MySQL versions. And you
Nice.
can just run automated tests across all of that every time you make a change.
And then you
So
cross your
that,
fingers,
yep.
hoping for no fails.
Right. Yeah. But so we actually run that on our infrastructure
Nice.
now. We use it ourselves across a lot of our extensions, and we're really starting to encourage anyone who's got solutions in the marketplace
Hmm.
to use it across, like to use our example, if you know that subscriptions and memberships are used heavily together, then like anytime subscriptions or memberships make a change, they should probably be testing against each other,
Probably so.
right? And this enables that. So we're looking at how we can roll that out and make it more widely available because ultimately the experience that people have with any part of the WooCommerce ecosystem is what they think of the entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's in all of our favor for it to be as good as possible.
Absolutely. One of my favorite questions when I was head of customer success for GiveWP was, well, can't you just add something? And I was like, if you remove the word
Yeah.
just, we can actually look into it. But it's not going to just happen like, oh, we'll have that for you by
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tamara,
It's always like, yeah, we can just add that. And then here's this just like tidal wave of other considerations that come with
we can just add it maybe in 10 to 12 months.
it.
Not by tomorrow. Tamara, as you hear some of these things talking about the and I'll remind you on you're on mute before you begin to talk. As you hear about some of these things in the roadway, how excited are you about being able to market some of these things, especially under the new branding?
Oh, thrilled. I mean, especially because I think the community, our merchants, they've all been asking for these things, and nothing is more satisfying as a marketer is to say, hey, we've listened and now we're bringing it to you. Also, we're making it easier. And I think that the thing that's really unique about WooCommerce and WordPress is this open source, driven by a community and ecosystem approach. And so being able to bring that to them, seeing all of these folks benefit from that and making their lives easier is like, it's pure joy. As
Yeah.
lame as that might sound, it's true. It also makes my life a lot easier, or my job, I should say. Not my, maybe my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if your
Job.
job's easier, life's easier too. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that follows. That follows. As a marketer myself, I you can't help it. It's like you start to foam at the mouth about some of the things that you can start to think about your personas and ooh, what color should that be? And I'm already like playing around with like logo designs and things like that in my head. So I totally understand where that's coming from.
The ability to tell that, like, to speak the truth. Like, I know this is true because we've listened, we've heard you. And so it's not, just a bunch of marketing jargon and fluff.
Yeah.
It's real stuff.
It really is, yeah. And I don't, like I keep saying, I don't think a lot of people realize what goes into the marketing, what goes into the development. It's like, oh, there's a product, I just want it to work. And if you
Mhm.
both have done your job right, that's exactly what happens. So I love
Yeah.
that for sure. Yeah, so things have been great. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up for the day? I'll go to Beau first.
Yeah, I want to just add a shout out and a mention to something that's coming soon that we haven't talked about a ton publicly, but a little bit. And I don't think people realize, but it's going to be a good one, which is a new starter theme for WooCommerce.
Mm.
So people are probably, if you've been in the space for a while, you're probably aware of Storefront. It's been around for many years, and is kind of a good starting place for an e-commerce website. But it has not moved with the times of, the block-based editor and
Sure.
everything being block-based, adopting global styles, all of the cool new stuff that WordPress supports. Um, and so we're very actively working on a new starter theme for
Nice.
Woo that's going to be kind of a out of the box default best experience with all of the latest blocks, all of the latest patterns, deep integration with everything that WordPress offers from a site building perspective.
Hmm.
Um, I'm really looking forward to that because I think it's going to, again, this kind of baseline and increasing the out of the box experience. I think it's really going to shift that for a lot of people. And they're going to see things like our new checkout
Mm.
or newer checkout, which is fully block based, is so much better than the short code version, which a lot of people are still using. This will give you that out of the box. I think people will really see what's possible with a Woo store without a ton of customization. You won't actually need to do too much to have a really beautiful store straight out of the box. So
That's
I'm
nice.
super excited for that. And that's coming probably in the next two releases, I would guess.
Oh, nice. What I also
Yeah.
like about block-based is that you can customize it as much as you want. So that people don't see your site and go,
Hmm.
oh, that's a WooCommerce store. So like you have
Yeah.
that, so it's branded as your store, less so than being recognized as the theme behind it, for example. And I think that's great.
Yeah, storefront, I think, I mean, I'm going to show my age here, but storefront to me felt a little bit like the Kubrick of WordPress, like going way, way back and like every single WordPress site that you saw, you were like, that's WordPress because
Right.
it's using this theme that wasn't super customized.
Exactly.
Storefront felt a little bit like that, even though it was really flexible. A lot of people would just put, a couple CSS tweaks on it, change the logo, and there's your
Right.
store. This new starter theme, the fact that it's block based, the fact that it's powered by patterns across the board, is incredibly flexible. And our designers have put together like dozens of incredibly beautiful and wildly different looking layouts and style systems and everything, all using the same theme. So I'm really excited to see what people do with that.
So when that's released, you'll have to come back and do a little demo for us so we can show the world through Post
Yeah,
Status.
that would be awesome. I would love to bring back our designers and have them do
Yeah,
it because
absolutely.
they've done some amazing work here. And
Sounds good
actually,
to
if the
me.
community's familiar with Ellen Bauer,
Hmm.
she's leading that work. So
Nice.
we're also really lucky to have her join us. Again, someone with like deep community experience, tons of
Hmm.
background in theming and design. And she's been driving that, and it's been
Nice.
awesome.
Oh, we'll definitely have her back then, or have her on the show. I would love that. Tamara, what about you? Any last words before we wrap up today?
Tough act to follow with some product insights
I
and
know,
feature
right?
development. Come on,
So your add-on is, and we'll be marketing all of those for you. Thank you very much.
Maybe I'll ask the community for feedback. I think that the power of the way that we operate is very much driven by the community, and I would love to be more ingrained in that, in touch. And so, if there's feedback, constructive or otherwise, or how we can partner better together, how we can provide more resources as it relates to making it easier for our community to market what they do or to build with us, like that door is open and I want to hear from the community. So the feedback loop, keep it open. Any ideas that come to mind, we want to put the community and our merchants at the front and center of everything we do. And so if there's, collaborations out there that might exist, like we're all here for it. So I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. And after we're done recording, before you leave, I'll get some of those links and ways that people can do that, and we'll include them in the show notes. So I want to thank you both so much for being here, for joining me today. Excited to get some of this information, or all this information, out to the Post Status community through our podcasting and our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. And if other people have things that they think would be worthy of sharing with the community, hit me up either on Slack through our contact form, and we'd be happy to have you on the show. Thank you both. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks so
Thank
much, Michelle. Glad I could make it.
Thanks.